Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer brought to you by Forge College. Today, we're jumping straight into implementing core front-end components. This is a massive step in our module on building the functional front-end for your capstone ecosystem integrated Solana dApp. And of course, this is all part of the broader Solana ecosystem track focusing on DeFi, oracles, AI, and applied protocols. Now, if you followed along with our last lesson, designing responsive dApp interfaces, you know exactly where we left off. Today, we do the heavy lifting. We're taking those static design blueprints and machining the actual interactive gears for your front end. We're rolling up our sleeves and diving right into the code. So here's our manufacturing plan for today. We'll start with from blueprints to assembly, then look at the WalletConnector, followed by the TokenList and the TransactionForm. After that, we'll hit quality control and testing before wrapping things up with next steps. All right, let's get into it. Part 1, from blueprints to assembly. We are finally moving away from the totally lifeless layouts we built in the design phase and stepping onto the factory floor to build working buttons, data flows, and isolated interactive components. You see, in Figma, or whatever design tool you use, everything looks perfect, pristine, and entirely unresponsive. But out in the wild, Web3 interfaces can be uniquely chaotic. You've got users dealing with network latency, staring at loading spinners waiting for wallet approvals, and impatiently double-clicking buttons. Today is about breathing life into those static designs so they can handle all that chaos. We're turning those pretty pictures into a robust, living component library that easily handles the erratic, real-world interactions of a modern Web3 user without breaking a sweat. But before we start machining our parts, we need a highly organized parts bin, and that means setting up an incredibly clean repository structure for our component library. We're carving out 3 distinct folders in our source code. First, the WalletConnector, which handles all the connection UI and wraps our adapter. Second, the TokenList, to manage our responsive asset grid and sorting logic. And third, the TransactionForm, which acts as the command center for user inputs and validation. Now, why do it this way? Because in Web3, state management gets incredibly complex incredibly quickly, especially when you're dealing with blockchain data that is constantly syncing and changing. By keeping these components strictly isolated in their own folders, along with their respective tests and documentation stories, we make absolutely sure our codebase doesn't devolve into a tangled ball of spaghetti once we start pumping live data through it. Let's move on to part 2, the WalletConnector. For a lot of beginners, the wallet adapter feels like this magical black box, but really it just acts as a standardized translator between your UI and the user's wallet. Think of it like a highly secure, incredibly cautious diplomat. Your dApp essentially says, hey, I'd love to know who's visiting, and maybe ask them to sign this transaction later. The wallet adapter then securely knocks on the door of, say, the Phantom or Solflare browser extension and negotiates that request. And the best part? It does all of this without ever letting your dApp see the user's private keys. Because trust me, unless you actively want to sponsor a hacker's next luxury vacation by accidentally exposing keys in your front-end code, you literally never want your dApp touching that raw data. It's safe, it's standardized, and it's absolutely essential for user security. When we translate this flow into code, it's actually brilliantly straightforward. First, we import the adapter hooks provided by our framework. Second, our component accepts an onConnect callback as a prop. Third, we map through and list the available wallets the adapter detects right there on the user's browser, showing them the options they already have installed. And fourth, we provide the button to toggle the connection, which passes that all-important base 58 public key up to the parent application. If you're a bit new to this, just think of that base 58 public key as their blockchain username. It tells us exactly who they are so we can fetch their data, but it absolutely doesn't give us the password to spend their money. We want to keep this UI component completely stateless when it comes to connection details and just rely on those adapter hooks to pass the selected public key back up the chain. Okay, part 3, the TokenList. This component has a lot of personality because it basically acts as your dashboard's inventory. We need a responsive card-based layout here. And notice this, we specifically pass balances as strings to avoid the terrifying, albeit sometimes humorous, surprises of JavaScript floating point math gone wrong. Seriously, if you've ever asked JavaScript to add 0.1 and 0.2 and gotten back 0.30000000000004, yeah, you know exactly why you don't want JavaScript doing that with someone's actual Solana balance. We treat those balances as simple strings until we use specialized math libraries later on. Beyond that quirk, this component needs to flex elegantly from a grid on desktop to a stacked list on mobile. It also has to be fully accessible with keyboard navigation and ARIA tags, which are those special labels that help screen readers describe the page to visually impaired users. And finally, it needs to handle empty states gracefully. It definitely shouldn't break or look like a glitchy mess just because a user connects a brand new, completely empty wallet. Moving right along to part 4, the transaction form. This is the steering wheel for our users. It's where they actually tell our dApp what they want to do. The logic flows like this: inputting a recipient address, entering an amount, and then, this is incredibly crucial, running client-side validation before we ever handle the submit. This brilliantly illustrates why we need to catch errors early. For those new to the jargon, an RPC node is basically the loudspeaker that yells your transaction out to the rest of the Solana blockchain. So think about it. Why send a request all the way to a Solana RPC node just to be told that the recipient address the user typed is missing 3 characters? That's a massive waste of time, and worse, a failed transaction can sometimes still cost your users tiny amounts in gas fees. So, we check the recipient address length locally. We ensure the amount is positive and doesn't exceed their balance, right there in the browser. Only when our client-side validation gives the green light do we handle the submit and show the loading, success, or error feedback. It saves money and it keeps the whole dApp feeling incredibly snappy. Up next, part 5, quality control and testing. I cannot stress this enough. Testing your brand new steering wheel on the mainnet with real money is a terrible, terrible idea. Always use local mock data and test adapters. I know it sounds like common sense, but just picture a developer testing a new send all button they just coded. They accidentally leave their environment pointing to the mainnet, they click the button just to see if the loading animation works, and boom, they've irreversibly drained their own actual wallet into a test address they don't even control. Don't be that developer. In the Web3 space, you have to treat signing as an explicit, highly protected action, and keep your dev environment strictly cordoned off from mainnet credentials at all times. So your quality control checklist has to verify that these isolated components function perfectly and predictably using only mock data. You want to open up your demo page and see absolutely 0 angry red console errors. You want to click your WalletConnector and see a fake, mocked public key pop up instantly. You want to resize your browser window like a maniac and watch your token list seamlessly adapt across breakpoints, from a grid right down to a stacked list. Your transaction form needs to aggressively slap away invalid data the literal second it's typed. And, of course, your local unit tests, the ones checking for rendering and primary interactions, they all need to execute and pass locally with flying colors. And that brings us to part 6, next steps and wrap up. By finalizing these isolated UI primitives right now, you are creating a reliable contract that our on-chain workflows will safely plug into later on. You've successfully isolated the visual behavior from the heavy blockchain logic. And you know what? This is exactly what professional Web3 developers do. Why? Because it allows front-end UI developers and back-end smart contract engineers to work completely in parallel without blocking each other. They don't build the engine and the chassis at the exact same time in the same file. They build predictable, testable, beautiful components first, knowing exactly how they're going to fit together later. So make sure you commit this library, your tests, and your demo page to your Capstone repository. We've basically built a beautiful, high-performance sports car today. But right now, it doesn't have any gas. So, how exactly will you wire these isolated front-end parts into live, breathing RPC interactions in the next lesson? To find out and to dive deeper into this subject and literally everything Web3, make sure you visit forge.college. Forge College made this explainer just for you. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next one where we finally turn the key and start this engine.